Let me explain how we're gonna do this. We have this conversation model. Sorry, let's add this conversation name right here. So how are we gonna do this? So I have a sender ID and a receiver ID. I'm gonna go to the conversation model because I'm looking for a conversation. The first rule is the is group, it should be false. And the reason for that, because it's a conversation between and someone else. It's not a group. It's just, a private conversation between me and someone. The second thing is in the users right here array, here are the users that are in this conversation. So I have to find the sender ID in these users and also the receiver ID in these users. Both of us should exist in the users, so I know that I exist in this conversation. How are we gonna do this? Let me call this convo. We're gonna use a wait. Then we're gonna go to the conversation model. I rather import it from the index, so I'm just gonna go here and then index.js like that. And then I'm going to use the find function in MongoDB to find. So what we're going to say, the first thing is the is group property should be false. That's how you search. The second thing is that I'm searching for multiple things inside an array. How I'm going to do that? I use the AND operator like that, and I open an array. And then I go to the users. So because I'm searching in the users array, so I'm going to go to the users and then I'm going to use operator lm match, okay, like that. And then I'm going to use the equal operator again. So it's going to be equal. So it's going to be matching to this to this value that I'm going to say it's equal to, which is the sender underscore ID. Not only that, it should be also the same that a receiver ID exists there. So both of them should exist. This is the rule. If one of them exists, it's not a conversation between the two. So to be a conversation between the two, it has to be a not group, and also the in the users array, we have to find two matching elements, one for the sender and one for the receiver. So I've done that. So if we find this convo, we need to populate a few things. So to populate is just simply, like for example, in the users, we have an object, which is an object ID, which is just referencing a user. So that means I can take that user and populate its own informations. Like I can get the name, I can get the picture, I can get the status, whatever I need from this user. So how are we going to do that? I go down here and use the populate function. So populate. Okay, my biggest fear is just typos. Populate. I hope this is right. So we're going to populate the users for this model, but I don't need the password. So I'm going to go minus password right here, because I'm going to populate the users, but without the password. And then also I need to populate the latest message. Latest message, because the latest message right here is also an object ID. So using that, I can go to the message model and populate the informations, even though we still don't have the message model, but it is fine. So I can go now and see or say, I always mix those up. So if there is no convo right here, what I have to do is throw, and then create HTTP error. When I'm tired, I cannot talk. Create HTTP error dot bad request, and we will say something like oops, and then something wrong, something went wrong, like that, which is the same. Now I've changed it right here. You go back to the controllers and change this to oops, something went wrong. So it's something, the same. So it is kind of nice. So, but if like it does exist, so this conversation does exist, I want to actually go to the last message. So this last message that I have, I want to go inside it, and it's going to be a property that we still didn't create, but we will create later, which is going to be the sender. So the sender of that message, and the sender of that message is simply the user. So we need to get the user from the latest message, which is simply a miss. This is gonna be sound confusing, but I'm gonna do it, and when I do the message model, I will come back to it and I will actually explain it for you. So I promise you that. So right here is gonna be the populate message model, even though we still didn't create it. But because now it's not there, so it's not going to create a problem. But if it was there, I'm going to go to my convo right here. I'm going to use await, and I'm going to go to the user model. So the user model right here, and then I'm going to use populate. So I'm going to populate this convo that I have here to go and actually decide the path, so what we actually want to. So I'm gonna go to the latest message model and then the sender property inside it, and what I need to get from there, so select the things that I only want to get. So simply I'm gonna get the name and then also email, and I want to also get picture and status. I don't want the password. All right, so it doesn't make sense now, I know, but it will, don't worry. And then we will return, because this find, we're using find, so it returns an array. So when it returns an array, the first one that it finds will return it. So convo 0, like that. All right, so maybe they've changed that to convos because it's an array, so that would make more sense. More sense. And then we'll go and return the first one. And let me go back here. Does this conversation exist? I will do that. All right, so now we have to test if this actually conversation exists or not. So if it doesn't exist, it's another story. If it does exist, that's another story. So if there is no existed chat, what we should do right here. So if it doesn't exist, what is like the next point? Is like to create it. But let's say that it exists. So we have a conversation that exists. So I'm just gonna send it response.json, and then I will send the existed conversation because I found it. It is there. We returned it. Else, I'm gonna send for now. I'm gonna response.send. We need to create a new conversation because it doesn't exist. Let me try this. So I'm gonna go back to my database, go to the WhatsApp, and go to users, and I will create some random. I'll get some random ID, so I can use in the receiver ID, and then I will send. And I'm sending. I see we need to create a new conversation because the whole test that we did, it just simply is not going to be valid because we didn't find it. So right here we need to create it. So let's define the convo data right here. So this is like the what is gonna be, what is the object is gonna be like. So the name, okay, because this is simply the name of the conversation. You see the conversation right here. The name of it. What is the name of the conversation? Like when you're talking to someone, what is the name? Is it the actual of the name, the user that you're talking to? Isn't that right? So like when I have a conversation, let's say with my friend who is Jack. When you see in WhatsApp, when you're talking to him, what is the name of the conversation? It is Jack. So that's the name that should be there. So how we can do that is actually I need to get, so I have the receiver ID. I need to get that user. So I can go right here. So maybe actually I need to do it here. So let's receiver user, and I'm gonna go away and await, and then user. This should be actually in the, like it should be in a service. This is like actually what we need to do. You know, it doesn't, I don't like it this way. So what I'm gonna do actually, let me have the receiver user, but I'm gonna go await, and then I can do get user, and we will send to it the receiver ID because we want to get it. So I don't know, and the name is gonna be the receiver user after we get it, and then we'll go .name. So I have to create this get user. So I can go to services in the user. I can go now and then export and then calls get user. It's gonna be an asynchronous function that takes an ID, and just simply, actually we do have it. I have find user. So yeah, thank God that I do. And then I can actually get that. So after getting that, I can actually just get the name. So that is the name of the conversation is gonna be. And is it gonna be a group? Of course, it's false because I'm starting a private conversation. And then the users is gonna be an array with the sender underscore ID and also the receiver underscore ID. I feel like this is actually very simple to understand. I am 100% sure of this. So now that I have the convo data, I need to create it. So how I'm going to do this, I'm gonna go const and the new convo, because this is the convo I'm creating, and I'm gonna use await, and then I will create a function that is called create chat, just this is gonna be a service, and what we need to do to send to it just the conversation data. Sorry, because I was my other name I was using chat, that's why I keep repeating this, but I want to use conversation. So create conversation. So because I'm looking at my other projects and I use chat, and I feel like conversation is more suiting. Okay, so that's why I'm gonna rename it to create conversation like that. So what I have to do right now is I'm gonna actually take this and go back to my conversation service, and I need to actually create that. So I can go down here and I'm gonna go export const create conversation synchronous function. I know this is kind of a lot of work, but we have to go through it. So this is data, let's say, and then simply I'm gonna go const and then new convo that I'm gonna create. I'm gonna go await and then the conversation model, and simply I'm gonna use the create function. So create, this is a normal function that exists in Mongoose that we can use, and we'll send to it the data, and this is will create the model for us. But if something wrong happened, we're not gonna have the new convo, so nothing is gonna be there. And what we'll do there is just throw and then create HTTP error, and then we'll see it's a bad request and bad request, and we will see something like this. Oops, something wrong happened. So I should have just copied that. All right, so that's nice. But else, if everything went all right, we're just gonna return it. So we'll return the new convo, and then this new convo is the one I'm gonna have in the, what is the controller right here? So let me import that. So I'm importing it from the services. So I can now send response.json. I will send the convo that we have created now. All right, so let me go back to my database here, go to conversations. I have nothing. Now I go here and I send again. So we're waiting, and oh, you see right here, we're getting a response, and it's created our first conversation finally. So it is called by this name because this is the person I'm gonna talk to or have a conversation with. And is it a group? It is false, and it has my ID and the user ID, which is in the receiver ID we're talking to. And then also it doesn't have the latest message because there is no message that exists, so I cannot add it. So that is good for now. This is good for us. And if I went to my database, refresh, and I have this. But there is an extra step that we have to do. I know this video is getting too long, and I truly understand maybe this is too much. I should have cut it a little bit, but I feel like this is also very, very important, which is we need to populate the chat, because or the conversation, because there is few informations that I actually need to get, which I didn't. And yeah, so should I do this right now, or maybe I should do that in the next video? I actually don't know. So maybe I can, because what I need to populate, if we're being honest about this, what we need to populate, we need to populate the users, and we need to remove the password, because right here what you see is we're only getting the users this way, but I want to actually get the actual informations of those users. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why before sending this, I can maybe go const and then populate it convo, and then we'll use await, and then we can create a function that is called populate. Actually, like I was gonna do it in the create conversation itself, and it's like easier, but it's fine. We can have it right here. We say populate conversation, and what we need to populate, I'm gonna send. So this is the way I'm gonna do it. This is like a function that I will create. You send her first parameter is the fields you wanna populate. Okay. So actually, first of all, you need to send the conversation ID, which is gonna be the new convo. _ID. The second, the things I want to populate, which is users. That's understandable. And this the third parameter we need to send is the thing I don't want to populate. I want to remove, which is the password, because I want to get those users, but I don't want to get the password. And that is like what I'm trying to say right here. And then simply now we can actually just go and send the populated convos, and then with a status of 200. That means everything went all right. Sorry, let me remove this from here and add this here. And now we need to actually create this populate conversation function. Go back to the services. And I know it's getting a lot of work, so we still have to go there and do it. Export, and then const populate, and then asynchronous function, and right here we're gonna have the ID, and then fields to populate these things I want to populate, and the things I don't want to populate, fields to remove. And simply I'm gonna go and then const, and I call this populated convo. I'm gonna use await, and then I'm gonna use the conversation model that I have, and I will use dot find one. How are we gonna find this? We're gonna find this by the ID. So underscore ID, which is the ID we're sending. So now we find it, but if it doesn't exist, it's a big problem. So let's actually, after I find it directly, I can populate it, because if it's there, you know, I found it by this ID, I can populate. So populate, and what we need to populate is simply the fields to populate here, okay? And then also the things that I don't want to get. So how I'm gonna do that? I just can go and add it here. It is the same. So I can just go this way and add the fields to remove, because we already added the dash to remove right here. So this is the dash. So it's gonna be, is like using I don't know, I don't remember when I did it, but I did it something like here. What is it? Yeah, I did it. So this is populate. The first right here is the users, and then the second, and we don't want the password. So yeah, I feel like this is understandable. So this is the populate function right here. We need to populate, and then this is okay. And now what I need to do, let me just check something else that I need to do. I feel like that's it. That's it. So we already populated convo, and I'm gonna check if it just doesn't exist. And I'm just trying to make sure what I'm doing is right. And then this is simply gonna be the same message here. All right, throw and then create this error. But if everything went all right, I can just simply return the populated convo. I hope what I'm doing is right. I hope. So let me try again. So let me send. Okay, finally. So in the users right now, I can actually get everything right here. Okay, I get the users informations without the password. Some people would say, why didn't you just do it right here? In the create, you could have just used populate here and you're done. But I'm having this because in services, because you want your application to grow. You cannot use the same function to create a conversation. You may have another controller that want to create the conversation. And you shouldn't manipulate that, because you will end up, if you want to do something else, you have to create two functions to create the conversation, and that's not good. You want to have every, like in the services, every function does something, you know, for you. So this function creates for us, this function creates for us the conversation, but the seconds only populates the things I want and removes the things I don't want. So this function is very usable, and it's a very good function or a good service for this conversation model. So this is the way you gotta look at it. Not only for now, but in the future. You wanna grow your application, you wanna scale it, you wanna add stuff. In an XPS application, you have to be very, very careful, or you're just gonna end up with, you know, blown code and you don't know what you're doing. Okay? So this is my advice for you, and we finally did it. We can now create a conversation, and I can refresh and it is still here. Now, as I told you, this is already existing. So now if I try to create it again, it's not gonna create it. It's just gonna retrieve that conversation from me. So I send, it's just giving me the conversation that exists. And the proof is when I go here, it doesn't create another conversation, but it just gets me the one that already exists. So I'm tired. See you in the next video.